Welcome back to the Julian J Franco Show, a show where I bring to you people who I would hang out with behind the scenes. And this person who's coming up is somebody who I've been watching forever. And I'm just so happy to have him here today. His name is Elliott Hulse. He's a strong man, strength coach, father, video poet, and a husband. He has over 2.5 million subscribers and fans from all over the world. And he owns 4 businesses. He made his first YouTube video in 2007 and was awarded YouTube's fan favorite fitness celebrity by RyanSecrets.com. And more importantly, there's many young men who have direction in their lives because he exists. So Elliott, I just want to start off by reading some comments. And these are all comments that have been posted within the last 2 months. And I'm going to give you 3. The first one is, every video is a gem. Elliott's a true leader of his age. Number 2, it is almost psychic of you to know exactly how many of us young men are thinking. And number 3, I've been watching your videos since 2014. Believe me, you have taught me so many lessons in 7 years that even my father couldn't teach during his entire lifetime. So Elliott, when you hear comments like that, how does that make you feel?
I don't feel anything. I try not to feel anything about it, because if I feel something about it, that means I'll be attached. I know what it's like to grow attached. And I have a big ego. And so pride is before the fall. And I've fallen many times because I've indulged in pride. So, you know, I read it and I believe it, but I don't judge it. I just let it be what it is. You know, let God do his will through me. I take no credit at all. I'm a mouthpiece. That's all it is.
And when you say that you have a big ego, I think everybody does, right? And a lot of people who say, oh, I have no ego at all, I always call BS on that, because I feel a healthy sense of ego is great, right? Like, you want to look good for yourself. You want to look good for your wife. You want to look healthy for your kids. So like that, they have a role model to look up to. But at what point do you feel the ego becomes unhealthy?
Like I said, when it's an attachment, you know, so I didn't expect to become a YouTube celebrity. I started my gym, you know, in 2007, and I was using YouTube to get more members into my gym and recognize that young men were asking me questions about lifting and about life advice. So I was just making the videos really with no intention of, I didn't know that I would reach so many people and it would be so big. I was just trying to make a living. I was really just trying to, you know, build up my gym, and then I started selling ebooks and stuff. So when all this positive feedback started being lumped on me, especially when I was growing very rapidly in 2013 and 14, I got very, very inflated. I was like, whoa, well, look at me. Well, I must be great. This is amazing. And then I started, you know, when you read those things, you start to believe it. So I was believing it, like, wow, maybe I am psychic. Like I said, that kid said, like, maybe I'm psychic. So I started believing them. And then I started believing my own bullshit. And as a result, it's impossible to be attached to the light, to positivity, without having it also be accompanied by the negative, the dark. So to the degree that I became attached to hearing all this amazing things about myself, the minute people started denigrating me, because, you know, I also when you're prideful, you become eccentric. At least me, I started becoming very eccentric and show my eccentric side, because, like, you know, I don't think I could do any wrong. So then when people started being negative, I took it just as seriously. And so I had to learn a lot about myself as a result.
That's such a good point. And something that it's easier said than done, right? Just like, oh, don't be attached to it, right? Like, if you believe the good, you're also going to believe the bad. So whatever it is, you don't want to be fazed by it. But what's like one bit of advice to actually truly practice that?
I have to learn by experience. That's just my nature. My father is a great man. He gives a lot of good advice. He likes to preach. That's where I get it from. But he also recognized, at least in me in particular, he said, look, son, I can tell you not to touch the stovetop. I can tell you 1,000 times. I can tell you until you're blue in the face. But until you touch that stovetop and burn your hand, you're not going to know. So I just got to leave you alone. And so it was the same, you know, in many ways, in many aspects of my life, where, and I even crave it. Like, I don't just want somebody to tell me something. Sometimes I really just I want to do it. I want to screw up. I want to have the pain. I want to have the experience. That way I can say, I know, rather than, well, somebody told me, or it seems like a good idea. It's like, no, I screwed up. And therefore, if you're willing to listen to what I have to say with regard to something, at least you know you're listening to somebody who's been there. Like, yo, listen, I screwed up. I made that mistake. I did that wrong thing. I've been down that route. And not only that, because I've been so public for like 10 years, I could just point. I could just say, look, most people have already been following me. So I'm like, just look, check me out. This is where I messed up. But now you can, in retrospect, you can look back and I can tell you, don't make that same mistake. I see it as a necessary part of the growth process, right? I mean, you have to get beat up in the gym if you're going to grow muscle. And so it was just one of those type of experiences where, like, like I was saying before, I have to touch the stovetop to burn myself. And even though it's burnt, I have to put ointment on it. I got to heal it up. I got to put Band-Aids on it and stuff. I'm grateful because, number one, I have knowledge, experience, and I'll never do that shit again. And then I also have something to, say, hey, look at my scar. So I know where you're coming from. I think empathy is important. So I can say to a lot of men who are definitely 100% at some point in their life going to go through a similar experience. It's inevitable. It's inevitable that you go through a catabasis period because it's what's required for our growth as men. So because it happened in the public eye, and because I speak about it openly, when you face it, when you, like, maybe when you're 36, 37, 38 years old, and it hits you and you're like, wait a second, what is this confusing place I'm in? You might remember, oh shit, I remember Elliott Hulse, was saying something about this and kind of went through a similar experience. And whatever I have to offer you in terms of advice or support, it's coming from a genuine place because I've been there.
Amen to that. And one thing that I know a lot of people are fascinated about, and even myself, is fasting. And you say that you fast to be closer to your creator. Now, people who don't understand what you mean by that because they're not faith-based or, they don't follow religion, what is it that you mean by that?
When you eat, you have energy. When you have energy, the ego is much more active. When you're hungry and when you're suffering, humility starts to rise up in you. It has no choice but to rise, because you begin to start to recognize your own weakness and your own dependency. And so more than anything, it's a matter of shedding false perception, shedding false ideas, shedding the false sense of self that accompanies constant comfort, constant consumption, right? And so when the false self is challenged like that, right? And the false self, when it's challenged, it's not pretty. I say, like, that's when the demons come out, because that's when all, like, the negative attitudes that was hidden. Everybody's an addict. Everybody's addicted. And you know what? One of the things we're most addicted to is food. But when you just think about it in terms of an extreme situation, like somebody who's addicted to heroin, you could see, like, okay, so this person's coming off of heroin, so he's going to have withdrawal symptoms. And during those withdrawal symptoms, maybe they're angry or they're sad, or like all this shit comes to the surface. When we dopamine detox, when we detox from food, when we get away from the things that comfort us as normal people, maybe not addicted to heroin, but just quote unquote normal people, that's when all of our attachments start rearing up and showing themselves to you. I'm experimenting right now with semen retention, right? Have you ever done no fap?
Yeah.
Right? Did you notice that, like, after a few days of not ejaculating, not having an orgasm, that all of a sudden you start having weird thoughts, you start, like, second guessing yourself, or like maybe you're a little grumpy, a little bit angry?
100%.
that's that detox. That's that detox experience, because there's an explosion of neurochemicals in the brain every time you eat, but also when you orgasm, or when you play with your phone. So if you wanted to expose like your inner beta, your inner weakness, your inner bitch, take away your baba, take away your pacifier, take away, vagina, or pornography, or your cell phone. It's amazing. You'll see like grown men, maybe like 200, 300-pound professional athletes who like beat the shit out of somebody on a football field. You take away their cell phone, they'll act like a babe. Give it back to me. Give it back to me. Act like a little girl or something, right? So you really expose yourself when you start to take these things that we become attached to, i.e., food, out of your life. And you really gotta face yourself at that point. It's like, what is wrong with me? Why? How is it that I'm behaving like such a child? And it's just food, or it's just jerking off, or it's just my phone.
These are all such great points. And, a lot of people struggle with this, right? We struggle with laziness. We struggle with eating junk food. We struggle with addictions to porn, addictions to foods. So I remember watching one of your videos and you said like, fill your porn addiction with God. So this is the broader question. How can we go about releasing these addictions and moving forward from them? Because obviously you don't feel like a man when you're watching porn and you're releasing your semen into a napkin. You know what I mean? Like, how can you feel good about that? How can you feel good about not doing what you set out to do that day? I'm not talking about being productive 24/7. I don't believe in that. But if you said, hey, today I want to make one video. I got all day. Let me make one video. And you don't even do that, Elliott. You don't feel too good about yourself. So how can we start feeling good about ourselves and, just minimizing these addictions that I guess we're responsible for?
Well, the key is to stop needing to feel good about yourself. That's the root of the addiction. The root of the addiction is I need to be happy. I need to feel good. I need to like myself. I need pleasure. See, that's the false coin. That's actually what we become addicted to. So when you say, or when you ask me the question about feeling at whole with God, what's very resourceful is to know that God makes those he loves most suffer the worst, because it's through the suffering process that purification happens. All our attachment is fleshly. It's all emotional. It's not rational. It's not spiritual. And so God loves you so much that he wants you to purge yourself of physical and emotional attachment. And the only way he can really do that is by making you suffer, right? By taking those things away from you, and then letting you see yourself as you are. The problem is that we have we've set aside the value of mortifying the flesh in our culture for this attachment to what the pop culture, shoves down our throat, which is you should just feel great all the time. You should just do whatever you want. Life is about having fun. When the fact is that none of that is true. And all of that sets you up so that when things don't look like, the way they look in Disney movies, or they look like how people, put their false lives on Facebook, then you start thinking there's something wrong with you and you need to fix it. But what I'm offering, or really what Christ offers, is to mortify yourself, crucify yourself. That's his example. His example is, look, this life ain't all sweet, but if you want rebirth, you want to truly be born into the highest conception of you, what God has expected of you, your true spiritual nature, then you have to be willing to suffer. You have to be willing to sacrifice. There's no other way to achieve that.
This is all going to your point of when you destroy religion and sexuality, the society is done. And to the point of what we're seeing in social media today, like these really fake personas that are being put out there and these agendas. And what would you say is your biggest pet peeve about social media today?
I don't have a pet peeve about it. I don't have a pet peeve about it. The only problem is when I catch myself being attached to it, when I see myself indulging in the entertainment of it, or I find myself being wrapped up with what people have to say within it. The problem is not social media. It is what it is. The problem is me and how I either choose to use it or let it use me. And so is a fine line, right? There's a thin line between when you're using it and when it's using you, and you have to be vigilant. You have to constantly be vigilant as to when you're crossing that line.
Now, I've heard you say something about just because you're feeling sad stuff doesn't mean you got to go do that sad stuff, and about being on like a roller coaster of emotion, so to speak. So how do you stop yourself when you are feeling low and you're like, well, you know what, maybe I do deserve to be doing this, or soak a bit? How do you prevent that? And one thing I do admire about you, Elliott, is just like your state of mind, your mindset. And you've read so many books, like you are such an intellectual. So you're drawing from so many psychologists, and again, everything you say, people listen to, because it's not just hearsay. Like you went so deep within your own life. That's why people are always ready to listen to what you say. So that's just one thing I really wanted to learn more about, is how does Elliott personally, when he feels upset, when he feels low, when something didn't go his way, how do you remain consistent?
Well, I haven't been always able to handle it appropriately, because I grew up in the same effeminate world that all of us did. And there's one of two ways to go about it. We're given these two options, but there's a third way. Run from it, right? Run from it, hide from it, go smoke something, go drink something, go poke something, right? Go buy something, right? It's just, all these different ways, or go scroll on something. There's all these ways to just kind of numb, just like, okay, you know what? I'm going to turn my brain off to it, and I'm going to do something that feels good, right? And then there's, which is also just as bad, but it shows up a little bit more, like that's what I just described as the passive way. But then we could also go to the active way that can also become an imbalance as well. And that is try to resist it, try to fight it, try to fix it. You know what I'm saying? Try to do something about it, try to grind through it. That's a mind fuck too. That'll totally throw you off as well, because then you become attached to that. The best way I've found, and I didn't figure this stuff out until my late 30s. Best way I found to deal with it is to simply let it be. Let it be, and don't judge it, right? Don't judge it. Don't have an opinion about it. Try to just try to allow yourself to be stable, right? And the reason why that is so important is because to the degree that we are attached to pleasure and we allow ourselves to get excited, right? Like I'm a naturally excitable guy, right? So when something good happens, I want to get excited, or things are going my way, I want to be excited. For example, something really positive just happened to me in my life. My wife and I, we were looking to buy some land, right? I just found 40 acres in Florida, and we put a down payment on it. We're just going through the process right now, but like, it looks like it's going to happen. And I don't feel anything about it. I'm not excited, being excited is about living in the imagination. I'm not excited about it because I'm not living in my imagination. It is what it is. It's unfolding. And, I'm just riding the wave. You know what I'm saying? It's just what's supposed to happen. But what happens is we get caught into an imagination about it. Oh, it's going to be like this. It's going to be like that. Oh, I can't wait. And then you start building castles in the sky. And it's like you're trying to see it happen before it happens. And what you're really doing is you're setting yourself up for a collapse. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the collapse has to be like something like bad happens, but life will never live up to your imagination about it. because most of our imagination just comes from lies, lies that the media tells, lies other people tell you, the addiction to pleasure. Even just that daydreaming process is an addiction to pleasure. You're taking pleasure in the idea. Like that's, it's indulging also. That's an addiction. So I say that because if you find yourself going up, you're going to be in the same boat when things are going down. And so a lot of times people say like, how they want to have conversations about how to remove negativity from their life or not be negative. But I say, you start with the positive. Stop taking delight in positive ideas. Stop taking delight in positive experiences, because it's the same ride that you're taking, but it's going up and down. And so that kind of like, it'll switch in your mind a little bit, because ultimately it will teach you that it is the mood. It's the mood that we get into that causes all the illusion and all the pain in our life. So when things aren't right, when things aren't the way I want them, or I catch myself wanting to go into a foul mood, I do my best to stay quiet. Literally, just don't talk about it. Don't think about it. Not necessarily like repressing it, but just like just letting it be, just letting it pass, just letting it be what it is, acknowledging it. I'm not gonna pretend like I'm not upset, but I'm not going to act out of this place or this mood, because it's gonna pass anyway, just like everything else passes.
Elliott, you're driving me crazy. I literally lost my train of thought listening to you, right? It's just because everything you're saying resonates so much with me, and just the way you're able to articulate and package your thoughts. You're driving me crazy. That was incredible. Okay. Now, Elliott, before we go into the family segment, what allows for you to be bold and courageous and just speak your mind and speak your heart? Because a lot of people don't necessarily have the balls, right? They don't breathe deep into their balls enough to be able to say the things that you say, to do the things that you do. And you can pacify your behavior. You can pacify your words and maybe reach a broader audience. But to me, Elliott just does what he feels. And why is that?
Well, you got to meet my father, because he's the same way. I can't take, quote unquote credit. It's just it's just in my DNA. It's kind of like, it's just in my blood. It's in my family. It's the way we are. But I can tell you this, that it's got me into a hell of a lot of trouble when I was a kid. I was always, because I speak my mind or I speak up, I was always getting into detention. I was always getting into trouble. And they even put me on attention deficit hyperactivity medication when I was in 4th grade. This was like 1986. And I'm like, they put me on experimental Ritalin, they put me on drugs. Cause they're like, there's something wrong with this kid. He just does what he wants. And so, in a way, it's kind of it's a gift, but it's a curse, right? I have a lot of people that, they thought they liked me, but then they heard me say something, then they don't like me. I had a kid just now, I have a coaching program, and, the people who join my program, they love what I have to say, and they take the offer and they join and they're in. But when I have these frank conversations, or I'm answering questions for somebody else, and they hear me say something that they don't like, this one particular kid, he didn't like the fact that I said that young men should avoid dating single mothers, right? I'm looking out for my boys. I'm looking out for the young men that trust me. And so I'm just trying to give righteous advice. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feeling or denigrate anybody, but it's not in your best interest to date a woman that has children. That's almost like common sense, but that hurt his feelings so much, maybe because his mom was a single mother. And I understand, but if I was a different kind of person, I couldn't have the impact on maybe the 10 other guys that was about to go down that route, because I was going to hurt this one guy's feeling. You have to be willing to hurt people's feelings, and you got to be willing to have people not like you. You got to be willing for people to quit on you. And I just I'm okay with that. I have no problem with that. Like, I'm a masochist in a way. I kind of like I said, we talk about suffering and sacrifice. I kind of like pain. So it's like, pour it on. If you're gonna, you're gonna, if you're gonna dish out some pain for me, that's all right. I could deal with it. I'm a strong man. I tear my skin up for a living and lifting stones and shit. So I can handle you not liking me.
Right, right. Now, oh, Elliott, I wanted to move on, but just hearing that, I already have a good idea on why you shouldn't be dating, single mothers with children. But I just want you to get into that really quickly. And also, I just want to thank you. Just watching your videos, it changed my approach with, I'm a single man. And when you see girls, you're like, dude, every time you go up to somebody and you have an incentive because you want something from them, like you're already putting yourself in a bad position. It's no longer a good balance. And you said, think about it. Like, you're not there to be her friend. Like, you're not going up to this pretty girl because you want to be her friend. Like, get to the real point of why you're interacting with her. And you're like, shift your mentality, shift your intention. Don't just go up to her because you want, to masturbate with some flesh, so to speak. Go up to her and try to test out, does she have the qualities to be a wife, to be a mother? It's like, Elliott, all the things you say, they hit, man. They hit. So keep saying them. And now let's just end with that. So why shouldn't males be dating single, women with children?
Oh man, I mean, there are a myriad of reasons, but number one of which is, why would you want to take care of another man's child? You know what I'm saying? And I know that sounds bad. And I have family members who have done that. And I'm grateful. For example, my nephew, my sister-in-law had a baby when she was 16, and they, the father and her, they didn't get along, whatever. And they separated, and then she got married. And, so my brother-in-law takes care of her son. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that he was there. I'm grateful that for all that happened. But if I'm out here giving advice to young men, I have to be honest with them and say, if there's a woman that has a child and there's a woman that don't have a child, why deal with the one that has a child? And why go any further with a woman like that? Like, if you meet and you talk to her, then maybe there's a little bit of spark. But the minute you find out that, she has a child by another man, don't go any further. It's nothing against her. It's nothing against her and her situation. I wish the best for her, pray for her. But apparently, either she made some bad decisions, which is usually the case, but women will never own up to it. It's always the man's fault. It's never the woman's fault. It's never that she couldn't get along with the husband or the baby's father, or that she was, the perpetrator of the strife within the relationship. It's never the case. It's always he was abusive. And that term abusive is so broad, because when I ask people, or you ask them, what do you mean by that? What do you mean abusive? Was he beating you? Was he hitting you? 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. He was emotionally abusive. Well, what the hell does that mean? Anyway, my point is that there's a good chance that this is a woman that does not make good decisions. There's a good chance this is a woman that doesn't know how to pair bond. There's a good chance that this woman who's promiscuous, and as a result of her promiscuity, does not know how to pair bond. There's a good chance that this woman will cuck you. And I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but it basically means that even if you start dating this woman and she got another man's child, and you try to play hero, like, oh, okay, I'm gonna take care of you and your baby, she could leave you and still take child support from you. So now, now you're out of a relationship and you're still paying for this other dude's child. It's just a bad idea. See, in our world, we've become convinced that it's okay to make decisions emotionally. It's okay to be in love. Oh, I'm in love. And as a result, people don't use their brain. And most of the time when they think they're in love, they're not in love. Most people who are in love are not in love. They're in lust. You're just addicted to her. The minute you stop having sex with her, you'll see right away that, oh, okay, I really didn't love her, but I was under her spell. Women their vagina is like a magic wand in a lot of ways that makes men forget themselves. It's just like, here, take this. And they give them a little dose of the drug. And men, a lot of men, they completely lose themselves. They lose sight and they forget. when you cut yourself off from that, when you cut yourself off from women's drug and the addiction to women, it's so much easier for you to see clearly that a lot of times when I tell young men, a lot of times the first thing I tell them when they're trying to vet a woman and try to decide like, what should I do with this woman? I'm having a hard time with a woman. Is they stop having sex with her. This is why fornication is a bad idea. You know, I grew up in the same culture as you guys. So it's not like, you know, I'm a boomer or an old schooler. The whole thing is I seen why it's a bad idea. Now I can see it. I knew what was about, what the promiscuous culture is all about, but now that I understand that when you have sex with a woman out of wedlock, you do not know this woman because you have on sex goggles, and she becomes your slave master because she's your drug dealer, and you're acting just like a crack addict with a drug dealer. And whatever she says or whatever she wants, you just bending, you know, because you need that fix. It's a bad place to be. And so if men want to retain their power and retain their sense of self, their stability, their groundedness in their frame, they have to stop. We have to stop having sex with these women. That's the only reason why they have any kind of power over us. And it's not a power struggle, but it's in terms of not allowing yourself to be manipulated. You're being manipulated, but you can't see it because you're addicted to that drug. So we gotta, you know, it sounds crazy, right? It sounds like so counterculture, but when men start valuing ourselves enough to put relationship before sex, right? Don't leave it to the women. Don't leave it to the women, because the reason why the culture eroded the way it is because sexual promiscuity amongst women became proliferant after the birth control pill and abortions. So now they had no responsibility. Women used to be the gatekeepers. And then once sex became omnipresent because of abortion and birth control, then it became a matter, they became so wide open that there were no boundaries. And as a result, not only did they lose themselves, but men lost themselves because we fell right into it. And the minute we fall right into that sex trap, they're the ones whipping men around. This is why men are so weak, men are so confused, men are so addicted. It's because of the sex. The minute men stop the sex, we, in essence, put women back in their place. And it's a good place to be. You know, they say, oh, put a woman in her place. Well, it's a better place for her to be when I'm not addicted to her sex, because now I can see you as a person. I can see your personality. I can see your character. I can see the real good things in you, and I can see your flaws. But if I'm having sex with you, I can't see any of that stuff because I need you.
Elliott, everything you've said today hit a nail just within me personally, and whatever girl that I'm speaking to currently moving forward, if they're listening, no more sex. They already heard it here. So, Elliott, now I just want to get into the family aspect. What brings you the most joy about having your own kids, and what do you hope to leave behind for them that you maybe didn't have growing up?
You know, what I love most about my children is their mother. I have children because I love their mother. I wouldn't have had these children had I not loved their mother. And so my favorite thing about my children is their mother. My favorite thing about our family is me and my wife's relationship, because the children are born out of that love. So it's about she and I first. This is where the culture also gets it screwed up, because people, they get together, they have children, and then the children become first. And it's all about, you know, providing for the children, doing everything for the children. And this is another way that the order of the family got reversed and screwed up. When we put children as the most important thing in the family and in the relationship, the women take over the power. The women then usurp the power from the father. It's no longer about following the lead of a strong man. It's about the children. That's the wrong way. It's about husband, wife, love that bring children, and then the children are, you know, then the role is ordered, right? That's the order of operation: husband, wife, children. Otherwise, it gets turned upside down. And so I love my children. I have 3 daughters. I have a son. I love my children very much. I do what I do so that I can give them what they need, out of the love for their mother as well. Again, it's like, I love my children, but and this is why families are so important. Not broken families, but real families are so important, because the love that the husband or the father has for the mother trickles down through the mother into the children. The children come from the mother. The children don't come from me. I'm a man. I could bust nuts everywhere. I could just seed everywhere. But the love that they're going to get, the only way that the children will really and truly get love from the father is if it trickles down into the mother. And so for them to receive the greatest love from me, it's not, a lot of times it's indirect. It's not necessarily my direct love to them. It's my love for their mother, that then she's empowered. She's strong with my love, that she can give that, that emotional love that children need from their mother. And so as a provider, as a protector, as a leader, it's not that I'm distant, but as a man, you have to keep your head. You have to keep your head. A lot of times these fathers, they want to be their kid's best friend, or especially men with daughters, they treat their daughters like little girlfriends. They dote over their daughters. They simp over their daughters. Like, you can't simp over your daughters. You have to still be strong. You still have to be firm. You still have to have boundaries. Just because these men generally have disordered relationship to women in general, and then they end up passing that on to their daughters, and it can't be that way. What I look forward to, I know it sounds strange because my oldest is only 16 and my youngest is 10. But what I really look forward to is my children having good families. Like, I want people think this is strange, right? This woman was attacking me on Instagram the other day. And she's like, because I was talking about relationships, and I said some things that, feminists don't like. And she's like, well, what about your daughters? I'm like, you know what I want? You know what I want for my daughters? I want each of my daughters to have a strong alpha male, loving, protecting providers as husbands. That's what I want. I want them to have men like me. And that's, again, with feminism has destroyed so much, but including the family and the conception of mother, father, and children, son and daughter. A lot of people, especially men, I'm talking about fathers, they want their daughters to grow up to be strong, independent women, right? Like, the very type of women that make it difficult for young men to be in, right ordered relationships, to make her own money, or to be like a CEO, or like to be some high powered woman or whatever. I wouldn't fight against it. But what I want is them to be married. I want my daughters to be good wives. Why do I want them to be good wives? So that they could be good mothers. What greater wish could I have for my daughters than for them to marry good men and to be good mothers? I don't see how anything could be any better. I had my neighbor across the street. His daughter is 28 years old. She's still, I don't know, riding the cock carousel. She's out there and she makes a lot of money, but she's useless. So what? So what? A woman that doesn't have a family, does not making children, is for what? Why? What is your existence? What's the point? You have a superpower. You have a gift. You could do the most amazing thing that any human being could do on this planet, and we need more of it. We need more healthy, strong families and good mothers and good, strong fathers. Why would I wish anything less for them? And so I want grandchildren, not even just for me, but that would be, when you ask me about the future, it's a matter of, can my daughters find good men? And that's a part of what I think I'm doing out here when I make these videos and I talk to men. It's like, maybe there'll be a young man that watched my videos for 20 years and now he's the right kind of guy that, like, he finds my daughter and my daughter finds him. And because he's awoken to true masculinity in the traditional sense, I know he'll be a righteous husband and a good father. And my daughters, hopefully, I say hopefully because I do the best that I can, but who knows? The culture is so pervasive, that there will be good, worthy wives and women, and to allow that to happen.
Elliott, I'm in bliss right now because you are speaking my language. One of my biggest frustrations is when I hear, these rap songs and you hear Megan Thee Stallion or Nicki Minaj talking about, just being an independent woman. You don't need no guy and da da da. Like, it just drives me crazy because it makes it hard for me to approach somebody like that, right? For me
Right.
to engage them in some sort of behavior that's not overly, blingy. Like, oh, look, I got money, I got this, I got height. Now you should want me, so to speak, as opposed to, can we make a good family together? So everything you're
Right.
saying is so true. And it is like we're living like you say, like in a human zoo where it's just so much fakeness and so much silliness and so many distractions that without people like you, there wouldn't be any real faith for a family, for longevity, for healthy, household. So what you do is so darn important. And just to wrap up this whole interview, you have this King program. And for those listening right now, who's the ideal person to sign up for something like that?
Young men who want to live righteous lives, who want to be fit physically, be fit financially, right? Have a good career. Like, there are too many lazy men out there who too busy playing video games and watching porn. You got to be willing and wanting to get off all that imaginary BS and make some money, right? It's not a money-making program, but it's about the values and the virtues of being able to build your frame. Why do you want to build a frame as a man? Because it's nice to bring a woman into it. So you got to be fit. You got to be a provider. You got to be a protector. We talk about all kinds of things masculine. I mean, some of it is combat training and firearms training and like how to be able to provide and to protect. But then ultimately what my grandest wish is that families are strong again. Families are good again. And so for every young man that's in my program, my greatest desire for them is that they can find a righteous wife, not these women who will flip on you, lose their mind, divorce, rape you. It's hard. And I understand it's hard, but I can't do anything about the women. All I could do is do something about the men. I got my daughters. I do the best that I can with my daughters, but all I could do is wake these men up. And I tell you what, if we raise our standards, as men to what we will and will not tolerate, women will fall into line. If we stop fornicating with women, women will lose their hypnotic power over men, and they'll have to straighten up. They will have to start behaving like righteous women, good women, not, the predators that many of them, have been taught is okay. It's funny because they love to cry victim, right? But it's a part of the victim. They become predators because of the victimhood. Victim status gives you power. And I think they can't see it. A lot of people can't see it, but they get a lot of power through playing this victim card. And that it's not the case. We live in a matriarchy. This world is governed and ruled by the vagina. You just look at the music, look at the movies, look at the media, look at what men are doing, look at pornography. It doesn't take much. Look at feminism, look at the family, look at divorce rates, look at abortion, 60 million abortions. The culture is ruled by the darkest aspects of the feminine nature. It's just what it is. And we have to be honest about it. And so my greatest wish is that these young men can be the type of man that can warrant a relationship with a righteous woman and have lots of babies, have families. We need families. The only way we're going to turn this boat around is with families that have strong values. And you might not be able to change your friends' opinions on Facebook, but with yourself and a good woman and some children that you can instill good values in, maybe there's hope for the future generations.
Amen to it all. And I hope everybody signs up for that. And it's just incredible work, what you're doing. So Elliott, people say this all the time in interviews. I could talk to you for hours. I don't think they really mean that. They're just saying that to be nice. But with Elliott, I mean it. Not necessarily that I could talk to you for hours. It's a gift to listen to you for hours. You've been one of the few guests that when you talk, I literally lose my train of thought. Like I do all this research, I create all these questions and do all this. But with you, it's just so easy to get into, I don't know if you call it a trance, but it's just when you speak, man, it works. It works. You're a great orator. Keep speaking. Now, this is our last question, and I'm going to make it nice and silly, but it's your last day on earth, Elliott, and you can have anything on a plate. What foods would you put on it?
I wouldn't care what the food is. I would care who prepares it for me. And so it would be anything. I would love to have something prepared for my mother, my wife, and my daughter. Just one from each one of them. Just one, maybe, you know, a piece of the dish from each one.
Listen, that was beautiful. Elliott Hulse, thank you so much for your time. And I'm going to have all your links in the description box below. Guys, listening right now, I already know you think he's incredible. For the woman, hopefully this was an eye-opener for you as well. But especially for the males listening, click on the link. You can't go wrong at all. If there's anything you're going to invest in, instead of investing, like Elliott says, in a new video game or, you know, some pornographic video or something like that, invest in yourself. Create that framework that you need. Because guess what, Elliott? Right now, temporarily, they're doing fine. They're doing good. They're skating by. But 10, 15 years from now, they're going to be like, why didn't I get started? Why didn't I take my life a bit more seriously? You know what I mean? Why didn't I just spend a couple, some of my money and get into a program that's going to nurture me as a man for the rest of my life? All these things you're teaching, you don't forget these things, right? You keep nurturing them. They make you a better person. So Elliott, I just, people like you, we need more of them. And that's why it makes me happy that you have children, because guess what? You're going to live inside of them, and you live in all of us, everybody who's watched you throughout the year. So again, I can sing you praises for the next 30 minutes. So I'm just going to stop it right here. Elliott Hulse, thank you so much. And until next time.
My pleasure, Julian. Thank you, brother.